12 Stoic Principles to Build Unbreakable Self-Worth. Have you ever wondered why some people seem immune to criticism, rejection, and the opinions of others? Why they carry themselves with quiet confidence that nothing seems to shake? Today, we'll explore 12 powerful Stoic principles that will help you build the kind of unbreakable self-worth that comes from within, not from external validation. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with messages about our worth. Social media tells us we're only as valuable as our likes and followers. Society measures us by our achievements, possessions, and status. But what happens when these external sources of validation disappear? What happens when you lose your job, your relationship ends, or people criticize you? The ancient Stoics understood something profound. True self-worth is not dependent on external circumstances or other people's opinions. It comes from an inner foundation so solid that nothing in the outside world can shake. This isn't about arrogance or thinking you're better than others. It's about understanding your inherent value as a human being and building your life on principles that can never be taken away from you. Before we dive into these transformative principles, let me share a story that illustrates the power of unshakable self-worth. In ancient Athens, there lived a philosopher named Diogenes. He owned almost nothing, just a simple cloak, a staff, and a food pouch. One day, Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the known world, came to visit him. Finding Diogenes sitting peacefully in the sunlight, Alexander said, "I am Alexander the Great. Ask me for anything you want, and I will grant it." Diogenes looked up calmly and replied, "Stand out of my sunlight." Alexander's soldiers were shocked by this apparent disrespect, but Alexander himself was impressed. Here was a man whose self-worth was so complete, so independent of external validation, that even the offer of riches from the world's most powerful ruler couldn't tempt him. This story illustrates what the Stoics knew. When your self-worth comes from within, you become truly free. You're no longer at the mercy of other people's opinions, market fluctuations, or changing circumstances. You possess something that can never be taken away. Today, I'll share with you 12 principles that will help you build this same unshakable foundation. These aren't quick fixes or motivational mantras. They're profound, philosophical insights that have guided some of history's greatest minds through the most challenging circumstances. If you find value in this content, please subscribe and activate notifications to join our community of individuals committed to inner growth and Stoic wisdom. Now let's explore these life-changing principles. Principle 1. Your worth is not your achievements. The first principle for building unbreakable self-worth is understanding that you are not what you accomplish. In our achievement-obsessed culture, it's easy to fall into the trap of defining ourselves by our successes and failures. But this creates a fragile foundation, one that crumbles every time we face setbacks. Marcus Aurelius, who could have defined himself by being the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, wrote in his personal journal, "Remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Despite having unprecedented power and achievement, he understood that these external things were not the source of his worth. The Stoics believed that our true value lies in our character, our capacity for wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. These virtues are entirely within our control and can never be taken away by external circumstances. You can lose your job, your money, your status, but you cannot lose your ability to act with integrity, to learn from mistakes, to treat others with kindness, or to face challenges with courage. This doesn't mean achievements are meaningless. They can bring satisfaction and contribute to society. But when your self-worth depends on achievements, you become a prisoner to success and failure. Every setback becomes a crisis of identity. Every criticism feels like a personal attack on your value as a person. Instead, view achievements as expressions of your character rather than sources of your worth. When you succeed, it's because you applied virtues like persistence, creativity, and hard work. When you fail, it's an opportunity to practice resilience, humility, and learning. Your worth remains constant regardless of the outcome. Practice this by noticing when you tie your mood or self-image to external results. Instead of thinking, "I'm successful because I got the promotion," try, "I'm proud of the effort and integrity I brought to this opportunity." This subtle shift grounds your self-worth in what you can control, your character and effort, rather than what you cannot control, outcomes, and other people's decisions. Principle 2, you cannot control others' opinions. The second principle is accepting that other people's opinions are completely outside your control and therefore should have no bearing on your self-worth. This is perhaps one of the most liberating realizations you can have, yet it's also one of the most difficult to internalize. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. When someone criticizes you, the criticism itself cannot hurt you. Only your belief that their opinion determines your worth can cause suffering. This insight is revolutionary because it means that no one else has the power to make you feel bad about yourself unless you give them that power. Think about it logically. If your worth depended on other people's opinions, it would be constantly fluctuating based on who you encounter. One person thinks you're wonderful, another thinks you're terrible. Which opinion is correct? Neither, because your worth exists independently of both. The Stoics understood that people's opinions are filtered through their own experiences, biases, fears, and limitations. When someone judges you harshly, they're often revealing more about their own insecurities than about your true character. When someone praises you excessively, they might be motivated by their own agenda rather than objective assessment. This doesn't mean other people's feedback is worthless. Constructive criticism can help you grow, and genuine appreciation can be encouraging. But there's a crucial difference between receiving feedback and deriving your worth from others' approval. You can listen to opinions without being enslaved by them. The practice involves developing what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, wanting only what is within your control. Instead of desiring universal approval, which is impossible, focus on acting with integrity according to your values. When you do this consistently, you'll often earn genuine respect, but more importantly, you'll maintain your self-worth regardless of others' reactions. Start by identifying whose opinions currently have too much power over your emotions. Then practice this thought: their opinion is their business, my character is mine. This simple distinction can free you from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and fearing criticism. Principle 3, your mistakes do not define you. The third principle for unbreakable self-worth is understanding that your mistakes are events, not identities. Many people destroy their self-worth by defining themselves by their worst moments, carrying shame and self-condemnation that serves no constructive purpose. The Stoics viewed mistakes as natural and inevitable parts of human experience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," reminding us that past mistakes belong to the past and future worries belong to the future. Your identity exists in this present moment, shaped by the choices you make now, not by what you did yesterday. Every mistake contains valuable information. It shows you where your current approach isn't working and points you toward better strategies. When you define yourself by your mistakes, you miss these lessons because you're too busy condemning yourself to learn from the experience. Consider the difference between these two responses to a mistake. "I'm such an idiot for doing that," versus "that approach didn't work. What can I learn from this?" The first response damages your self-worth and prevents growth. The second response maintains your self-worth while promoting improvement. The Stoics practiced what they called evening reflection, reviewing the day's events not to judge themselves harshly, but to learn and improve. Seneca would ask himself, "What wounds did I heal today? What failing did I resist? Where can I show improvement?" This practice acknowledges mistakes without allowing them to define self-worth. Your mistakes are teachers, not judges. They're evidence that you're taking risks, trying new things, and growing as a person. The person who never makes mistakes is either lying or not challenging themselves. Your willingness to face mistakes honestly and learn from them is actually evidence of strong character, not weak character. Practice this by changing your internal dialogue about past mistakes. Instead of, "I can't believe I did that," try, "That was a learning experience that helped me grow." Instead of avoiding situations where you might make mistakes, approach them as opportunities to practice resilience and learning. Principle 4. Your value is not conditional. The fourth principle is recognizing that your fundamental value as a human being is unconditional. It doesn't increase when you succeed or decrease when you fail. It's not higher when you're healthy or lower when you're sick. It doesn't depend on your productivity, your relationships, or your contributions to society. This concept challenges many of our cultural assumptions. We live in a society that often treats human worth as conditional, based on usefulness, achievement, or social contribution. But the Stoics understood that this conditional view of worth creates anxiety, competition, and ultimately suffering. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, regularly reminded himself of his common humanity with slaves, commoners, and even his enemies. He understood that title, status, and power were temporary, roles, not measures of inherent worth. Whether he was making imperial decisions or lying on his deathbed, his fundamental value as a human being remained the same. This unconditional worth is not something you earn or lose. It's something you recognize. It's based on your capacity for reason, growth, virtue, and connection with others. These capacities exist regardless of how successfully you express them at any given moment. Understanding unconditional worth frees you from the exhausting effort of constantly proving your value. You don't need to be perfect, successful, or even liked to have worth. You don't need to justify your existence through productivity or achievement. Your worth simply is. This doesn't lead to complacency or laziness. In fact, it often leads to greater motivation because you're no longer paralyzed by fear of failure or driven by desperate need for validation. You can take risks, be creative, and pursue goals from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. The practice involves catching yourself when you tie your worth to conditions. Notice thoughts like, "I'm only valuable if I succeed at this," or "People will only like me if I'm perfect." Replace these with, "My worth is independent of this outcome," or "I can pursue this goal without my identity depending on the result." Principle 5. You are not your emotions. The fifth principle for building unbreakable self-worth is understanding that you are not your emotions. You are the observer of your emotions. This distinction is crucial because many people allow temporary emotional states to define their sense of self, creating unnecessary suffering and instability. The Stoics developed sophisticated understanding of emotions, recognizing them as natural responses that contain information but don't determine identity or worth. When you feel angry, you are not an angry person. You are a person experiencing anger. When you feel sad, you are not a sad person. You are a person experiencing sadness. Epictetus taught that we have the power to examine our emotions rather than being consumed by them. He said, "You are not your thoughts, you are the thinker of your thoughts." This perspective creates space between you and your emotional reactions, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Emotions are temporary experiences that come and go like weather patterns. Just as you wouldn't define yourself by today's weather, you don't need to define yourself by today's emotional state. Your fundamental identity remains stable even as emotions fluctuate. This doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring emotions. The Stoics advocated for acknowledging emotions fully while maintaining perspective about their temporary nature. When you feel fear, you can recognize it as fear without identifying as a fearful person. When you feel joy, you can enjoy it without needing it to last forever to maintain your self-worth. The practice of emotional observation strengthens your self-worth because it reveals that your core identity is more stable and enduring than your changing emotional states. You begin to see yourself as the calm center around which emotions revolve, rather than being tossed around by every emotional wave. Start practicing this by using language that creates distance between you and your emotions. Instead of "I am angry," try "I am experiencing anger." Instead of "I am depressed," try "I am going through a period of sadness." This subtle linguistic shift reinforces the truth that emotions are experiences you have, not identities you are. Principle 6. Your past does not determine your future. The sixth principle is understanding that your past experiences, while informative, do not determine your future potential or current worth. Many people imprison themselves in stories about what their past means, about their capabilities, value, or possibilities. The Stoics emphasize the power of the present moment, the only moment where you actually have agency and choice. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your past provides context and lessons, but it doesn't write your future story unless you allow it to. Your past mistakes don't make you a permanently flawed person. Your past successes don't guarantee future outcomes. Your past trauma doesn't define your character, though it may have shaped your experiences. You are not a prisoner of your history. You are the author of your next chapter. This principle is especially important for people who struggle with shame about their past. Whether it's addiction, relationship failures, career setbacks, or personal mistakes, many people allow these experiences to limit their self-worth and future possibilities. But the Stoics understood that every moment offers an opportunity for virtue, growth, and positive choice. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced what modern psychology calls temporal distancing, viewing current challenges from the perspective of future time. He would remind himself that present difficulties would eventually be memories, and that his response to these difficulties would matter more than the difficulties themselves. Your past can be a source of wisdom without being a source of limitation. The person who overcame addiction has unique strength and empathy. The person who failed in business has valuable experience about resilience. The person who endured trauma has developed survival skills and compassion. Your past challenges can become sources of strength rather than shame. The practice involves consciously separating past events from present identity. When you catch yourself thinking, "I always fail at this," or "I can't do that because of what happened before," pause and ask, is this belief based on who I am now or what happened then? Then choose to act based on your current values and capabilities rather than past limitations. Principle 7. Your worth is not measured by comparison. The seventh principle for unbreakable self-worth is understanding that your value is not determined by comparison to others. The modern tendency to constantly measure ourselves against others' achievements, appearances, or circumstances is a guaranteed path to suffering and diminished self-worth. The Stoics understood that everyone is fighting their own battles, facing their own challenges, and operating within their own circumstances. What appears to be someone else's effortless success might actually be the result of advantages you don't see or struggles you can't imagine. Comparison is not only unfair, it's irrelevant to your own worth and growth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that comparing his inner experience with others' outer appearances was folly. You know your own doubts, fears, and struggles intimately, but you only see others' public presentations. This creates an illusion that everyone else is more confident, successful, or happy than you are. The comparison trap is particularly dangerous in our social media age, where people curate their most positive moments for public consumption. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes reality with others' highlight reels, which is neither fair nor accurate. Your journey is unique because you are unique. You have your own combination of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Your progress should be measured against your own starting point, not against someone else's current position. The only comparison that serves you is comparing who you are today with who you were yesterday. The Stoics practiced what they called preferred indifference, recognizing that while some external things might be preferable to others, they don't determine worth or happiness. Whether someone has more money, better health, or greater success doesn't make them more valuable as a human being, just as having less doesn't make you less valuable. Instead of comparison, practice appreciation, both for your own progress and for others' achievements. When you see someone succeeding, you can be inspired by their example without feeling diminished by their success. When you face your own challenges, you can focus on your response rather than wishing for someone else's circumstances. Replace comparison thoughts with growth thoughts. Instead of, "They're so much better than me," try, "What can I learn from their approach?" Instead of, "I'll never be as good as them," try, "How can I improve from where I am now?" Principle 8. Your dignity cannot be taken away. The 8th principle is recognizing that your fundamental dignity as a human being is inviolable. It cannot be taken away by any external force or circumstance. This understanding forms the bedrock of unshakable self-worth because it establishes that regardless of what happens to you, your core dignity remains intact. Epictetus, who experienced slavery and physical disability, embodied this principle profoundly. Despite being owned by another person and facing physical limitations, he maintained his inner dignity and became one of history's most respected philosophers. He understood that while others could control his external circumstances, they could never touch his inner worth. Dignity comes from your capacity for moral choice, rational thought, and virtuous action. These capacities exist regardless of your social status, material circumstances, or other people's treatment of you. Even in the most difficult situations, you retain the power to choose your response, and this power preserves your dignity. When someone treats you disrespectfully, they cannot actually diminish your dignity. They can only reveal their own lack of character. When you face financial hardship, illness, or other challenges, these circumstances do not reduce your worth as a person. Your dignity transcends all external conditions. This principle is particularly important for people who have experienced abuse, discrimination, or other forms of mistreatment. While these experiences can be deeply painful and may require healing, they do not reduce your fundamental dignity or worth. The person who mistreated you was wrong about many things, but they were especially wrong if they suggested you deserved less respect or had less value. Your dignity is also independent of your own past mistakes or current struggles. If you've acted in ways that contradicted your values, you haven't lost your dignity. You've gained an opportunity to realign your actions with your principles. If you're currently struggling with addiction, mental health issues, or other challenges, these difficulties don't diminish your inherent worth. The practice involves affirming your dignity, especially when external circumstances suggest otherwise. When someone treats you poorly, remind yourself their behavior reflects their character, not my worth. When facing difficulties, remind yourself these circumstances are challenging, but they don't define my value. This affirmation isn't denial, it's recognition of a fundamental truth. Principle 9. Your growth is within your control. The ninth principle for building unbreakable self-worth is focusing on personal growth, which is entirely within your control. While you cannot control outcomes, other people's reactions, or external circumstances, you can always control your effort to learn, improve, and develop as a person. The Stoics were passionate about continuous learning and self-improvement, not from a place of self-rejection, but from a place of self-respect. They understood that the capacity for growth is one of humanity's greatest gifts, and exercising this capacity is both a privilege and a responsibility. Seneca spent considerable time studying, reading, and reflecting well into his later years. He understood that intellectual and moral growth could continue throughout life, and that this growth was one of the few things that truly belonged to him. External possessions could be lost, relationships could change, but the wisdom and character he developed remained his regardless of circumstances. When you focus on growth, you transform challenges from threats to your self-worth into opportunities for development. A difficult relationship becomes a chance to practice patience and communication skills. A professional setback becomes an opportunity to develop resilience and learn new approaches. A personal struggle becomes a path to greater self-understanding and wisdom. This growth-focused mindset makes you anti-fragile, not just resilient, but actually strengthened by challenges. Instead of trying to avoid all difficulties, which is impossible, you develop confidence in your ability to grow from whatever life presents. This confidence becomes a source of stable self-worth because it's based on something you can always control, your commitment to learning and improving. Growth-focused self-worth is sustainable because it doesn't depend on being perfect or having all the answers. It's based on being curious, open to learning, and committed to becoming a better version of yourself. This means you can maintain strong self-worth while acknowledging areas where you need to improve. The practice involves reframing challenges as growth opportunities and celebrating progress over perfection. When you make a mistake, ask, "What can I learn from this?" When you face a difficult situation, ask, "How can this help me grow?" When you notice an area for improvement, view it as an exciting opportunity rather than a shameful deficiency. Principle 10. Your present choices define you. The 10th principle is understanding that you are defined not by your past actions or future plans, but by the choices you make in this present moment. This present-focused identity is empowering because it means you always have the opportunity to act in accordance with your values, regardless of what came before. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the power of the present moment, reminding himself that the past was beyond his control and the future was uncertain, but the present moment offered infinite possibilities for virtuous action. Each moment presents a new opportunity to demonstrate character, make ethical choices, and align actions with values. This principle is liberating for people who feel burdened by past mistakes or paralyzed by future uncertainties. Your identity isn't fixed by what you did yesterday. It's actively created by what you choose to do. Right now, you can begin acting like the person you want to be immediately, not at some future date when conditions are perfect. Present moment choice also means that you don't need to wait for external validation to have worth. You don't need to wait for success, approval, or perfect circumstances to begin living with dignity and purpose. Every moment offers opportunities for small acts of virtue, kindness, honesty, courage, or wisdom that build and express your character. The Stoics practiced mindfulness not as a relaxation technique, but as a way of staying connected to their power of choice. When you're fully present, you can respond to situations consciously rather than reactively. You can choose responses that reflect your values rather than your conditioning or emotions. This doesn't mean ignoring the past or future entirely. You can learn from past experiences and plan for future goals. But your identity and worth are rooted in this moment's choices, not in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's possibilities. The practice involves regularly asking yourself, what does my best self choose in this situation? This question connects you with your values and empowers you to act with integrity regardless of external pressures or past patterns. Each time you choose your values over convenience, fear, or ego, you strengthen your self-worth through demonstrated character. Principle 11. Your values are your foundation. The 11th principle for unbreakable self-worth is grounding your identity in your deeply held values rather than in external circumstances or achievements. Values provide a stable foundation because they remain constant even when everything else in your life changes. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, as the foundation of human flourishing. These values were considered goods in the truest sense, because they could never be taken away and always led to positive outcomes, regardless of external circumstances. When your self-worth is based on values, you have clear criteria for evaluating your choices and actions. Did you act with integrity? Did you treat others with respect? Did you face challenges with courage? Did you pursue truth and wisdom? These questions are always within your power to answer positively, regardless of external outcomes. Values-based self-worth is also sustainable because it doesn't depend on comparison with others. Your values are your own compass, not a competitive ranking system. You can feel good about living according to your principles, whether or not others recognize or appreciate your choices. Living by your values also creates what psychologists call authentic self-esteem, confidence that comes from acting in alignment with your deepest beliefs rather than from external validation. This type of self-worth is stable because it's based on something you can always control, your choices and actions. The challenge is identifying your true values rather than values you think you should have. Your real values are revealed not by what you say you believe, but by how you actually spend your time, energy, and attention. If you say you value family but never make time for relationships, family might not be one of your actual core values. The practice involves regularly examining whether your actions align with your stated values. When they do, acknowledge this alignment as evidence of your character and worth. When they don't, use the gap as information for adjustment rather than self-condemnation. Values-based living is a practice, not a perfect achievement. Principle 12. Your peace is your priority. The 12th and final principle for building unbreakable self-worth is recognizing that your inner peace is more valuable than external validation, achievements, or other people's approval. The Stoics understood that tranquility of mind was the highest good because it enabled all other virtues and couldn't be taken away by external forces. This doesn't mean being passive or avoiding challenges. Stoic peace comes from engaging fully with life while maintaining perspective about what truly matters. It comes from doing your best in every situation while accepting that outcomes are partially beyond your control. When your self-worth is grounded in inner peace, you become less reactive to external events. Criticism doesn't shatter your confidence because your peace doesn't depend on others' approval. Setbacks don't devastate you because your worth doesn't depend on constant success. Changes don't terrify you because your stability comes from within. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, plagues, political intrigue, and personal losses while maintaining the inner peace that allowed him to lead effectively and write wisdom that still guides people today. His peace wasn't the absence of challenges, it was the presence of philosophical grounding that kept him centered regardless of circumstances. Inner peace also makes you more effective in the world. When you're not constantly anxious about your worth or others' opinions, you can focus your energy on meaningful action. When you're not driven by desperate need for validation, you can make decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. This peace is cultivated through practicing all the previous principles, accepting what you cannot control, focusing on your character rather than achievements, grounding yourself in values, and maintaining present moment awareness. It's both the result of Stoic practice and the foundation that makes continued practice possible. The ultimate goal isn't to become invulnerable to all pain or challenge. That would be inhuman. The goal is to develop such strong inner foundation that external storms cannot shake your fundamental sense of worth and purpose. You can feel pain without being destroyed by it. You can face uncertainty without losing your center. Conclusion: the fortress of inner worth. These 12 principles work together to create what the Stoics called an inner citadel, a fortress of self-worth that cannot be breached by external circumstances. This fortress isn't built of stone and mortar, but of wisdom, virtue, and unshakable understanding of your inherent value. Building this fortress takes time, patience, and consistent practice. There will be days when external events shake your confidence, when other people's opinions seem to matter too much, when past mistakes feel overwhelming. This is natural and human. The strength of your foundation isn't measured by never facing these challenges, but by how quickly you return to your center when they arise. Remember that even the greatest Stoic philosophers struggled with these principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations partly as reminders to himself about truths he sometimes forgot. Seneca wrote about his own failures to live up to Stoic ideals. Epictetus taught from his own experience of overcoming external disadvantages. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistent effort toward wisdom and virtue. As you work with these principles, you'll likely notice that your relationship with success and failure changes. Success becomes more enjoyable because you're not desperately grasping for it to prove your worth. Failure becomes less devastating because it doesn't threaten your fundamental identity. Both become teachers that help you grow in wisdom and character. You'll also notice that your relationships improve. When you're not constantly seeking validation from others, you can offer genuine attention and care. When you're not threatened by others' success, you can celebrate their achievements authentically. When you're grounded in your own worth, you can connect with others from a place of abundance rather than neediness. Most importantly, you'll discover a freedom that no external circumstance can take away, the freedom to be yourself, to act according to your values, and to maintain your dignity regardless of what life brings. This freedom is the greatest gift the Stoics can offer, and it's available to anyone willing to do the inner work required to claim it. Your worth is not a question to be answered by external validation. It's a truth to be recognized and lived. You are valuable not because of what you accomplish, but because of your capacity for growth, virtue, and connection. You matter not because others say you matter, but because you have the remarkable human ability to choose wisdom over ignorance, courage over fear, and love over hatred. The journey toward unbreakable self-worth begins with a simple recognition. You already have everything you need. You have the capacity to think, to choose, to grow, and to act with virtue. These capacities are your birthright as a human being, and no one can take them away unless you allow it. Start today with one principle that resonates most strongly with you. Perhaps it's accepting that your worth isn't determined by others' opinions, or focusing on growth rather than perfection, or grounding yourself in your values rather than achievements. Choose one area to focus on and begin the practice of building your inner fortress. The world needs people with unbreakable self-worth, people who can act with courage because they're not paralyzed by fear of failure, people who can offer genuine kindness because they're not desperate for approval, people who can stand for truth because their identity doesn't depend on being popular. You have the opportunity to become such a person. The principles are clear, the path is available, and the only question remaining is whether you'll choose to walk it. The Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't an academic exercise, but a way of life. These 12 principles aren't just ideas to understand, they're practices to live. Your unbreakable self-worth is not something you need to earn, achieve, or prove. It's something you need to recognize, claim, and protect. It's your inheritance as a human being capable of reason, growth, and virtue. The fortress of inner worth is waiting to be built, and you are both the architect and the foundation. Begin today. Begin now. Your future self, calm, confident, and unshakably grounded in true worth, is waiting for you to take the first step.